In 2025, the world's largest tech companies spent roughly $400 billion on AI infrastructure. Adjusted for inflation, that is the equivalent of 9 Manhattan projects or 2 full Apollo programs compressed into a single year. More money was set aside for building data centers than was spent on constructing single-family homes across all of America in the same window. And that number doesn't even include the private companies like OpenAI and Anthropic, the staffing costs, the energy bills, or the strategic acquisitions on the side. The 2026 numbers are projected to break those records again. But here is the most interesting part of the story. Almost 4 years after ChatGPT first went public, not a single one of these AI companies has figured out how to turn anything into profit. The only people making reliable money in this entire ecosystem are the hardware suppliers selling the pickaxes and the shovels, with Nvidia sitting at the very top of that pile. And now even that story is starting to crack because the numbers are no longer adding up. The data centers are not actually getting built, and the energy grid cannot keep up with what has already been promised. So let me walk you through what the press releases aren't telling you. Because what's really happening behind the headlines is one of the strangest paradoxes in modern business history. Problem 1. The chips are disappearing. So where are all these chips actually going? Because the first thing that does not add up is the supply of GPUs themselves. In an interview last year, Jensen Huang casually claimed that Nvidia shipped around 10 gigawatts worth of GPUs in 2025 alone. That is roughly the entire annual production capacity of the company, allegedly all sold and shipped out the door. Now compare that to what is actually online. According to estimates from Goldman Sachs, there are only around 7.7 gigawatts of AI data centers currently in operation across the entire planet. Read that again. Nvidia claims to have shipped more GPUs in a single year than the total global AI data center capacity that physically exists. You might assume the rest is going into the new data centers under construction, but the research tells a different story. Of the 21.5 gigawatts of announced data center capacity expected to come online before 2027, only 6.3 gigawatts is actively under construction. And under construction is doing a lot of heavy lifting in that number, because it covers everything from a fully built facility waiting on its last hardware install to a patch of dirt that has had a single concrete foundation poured. So, either Nvidia is shipping massive volumes of chips that are quietly piling up in warehouses somewhere out of sight, or the numbers being reported to investors are a lot more generous than they are accurate. Both of those options are bad. Look, if you're watching this and realizing how much of the economy operates under the surface where nobody explains it, that's exactly why this channel exists. We break down the real forces shaping your financial life, not the headlines, but the mechanics. If that's useful to you, hit subscribe so you don't miss the next one. Now let's get to the part that's already hitting your electricity bill. The chip inventory mystery isn't even the part that should worry you most. The next problem is the one that's already hitting your electricity bill, and it's about to get a lot worse. Problem 2. There is not enough power. The second issue is that the bottleneck for AI is no longer the chips. It is the electricity. A single hyperscale data center can consume as much power as a city of 200,000 homes. Modern AI training facilities draw multiples of that, and almost every other component required to actually plug these things into the grid, the transformers, the switchgear, the high voltage cables, the batteries are all in critically short supply. The price of large industrial transformers has more than doubled in the last 4 years, and a huge percentage of them are imported from China, which means the trade war and tariffs have made an already broken supply chain dramatically worse. The result is that data centers are getting built faster than the grid can handle them. There are now 2 fully completed data centers sitting just up the road from Nvidia's own headquarters in Santa Clara, completely offline, because the local utility cannot deliver enough power to switch them on. That is not a hypothetical bottleneck. That is happening right now in Silicon Valley. And then there is the consumer side of this story, which is where it gets ugly and where it gets personal. Georgia Power raised electricity rates 6 times between 2023 and 2025, a 24% jump, almost entirely because of data center demand. Pacific Power customers in Oregon have seen their bills climb 50% since 2020. And if you're wondering who ultimately pays for those rate hikes, it's not the data center operators cutting the checks to Georgia Power. It's the households. It's you. Residents in Virginia are now breathing the exhaust from roughly 10,000 diesel generators powering data center backup systems in their neighborhoods. Communities never agreed to this. Most of them found out about the facilities going up next door from a press release. The backlash has been swift. Data center cancellations due to community opposition quadrupled in 2025. Maine became the first state to pass an outright statewide ban on new data center construction. 13 other states are considering similar legislation. A recent Quinnipiac survey found that 65% of Americans now oppose data centers being built in their communities. And the federal government has noticed, with the FBI quietly classifying anti-AI sentiment as an emerging domestic terrorism threat. If you have publicly protested a data center in your town, you may now be on a watch list. Problem 3. Yesterday's chips are already wasted. The third issue is the one Wall Street is most nervous about, and it is quietly connected to your retirement account whether you know it or not. The chips themselves do not actually last very long. The big tech companies that buy Nvidia's GPUs depreciate them on their books over 6 years. That number is what allows them to report decent profits, because it spreads the enormous cost of all this hardware across a long timeline. In reality, these chips are lucky to remain operationally competitive for 3 years before a newer, faster, more efficient generation makes them effectively obsolete. Michael Burry of Big Short fame and several other major investors have publicly called this out as one of the largest accounting distortions in modern corporate finance. Here is what that means in practice. If Microsoft, Meta, or Oracle had to use honest depreciation schedules that reflected the actual useful life of these chips, their reported profits from AI investments would look significantly worse. And if their profits looked worse, investor enthusiasm would cool. And if investor enthusiasm cooled, they would stop ordering as many chips. And if they stopped ordering as many chips, Nvidia's entire business model starts to wobble. Higher energy prices make this even worse. Older GPUs that were marginally profitable to run when electricity was cheap become straight cost centers when energy prices double. Multi-million-dollar racks of last year's flagship hardware quietly turn into e-waste long before the depreciation schedule says they should. And here's the part that connects directly to you. Nvidia's stock has become so foundational to the major index funds, the same index funds sitting inside your 401k, your IRA, your pension, that any meaningful correction ripples straight into your retirement balance. You are already in this trade. The exposure is automatic. The question is just how long the accounting holds together. So if you are watching this video right now, wondering why any of this matters to you personally, here is the honest answer, and it's worse than most people realize. Last year, an estimated 92% of US GDP growth came from data center spending. If you strip out the AI infrastructure build-out, the rest of the American economy grew by 0.1%. The entire appearance of economic strength in 2025 was almost entirely propped up by a handful of companies pouring hundreds of billions of dollars into facilities that are now hitting power walls, supply walls, and community walls all at the same time. If the AI build-out slows or stalls, and the early evidence suggests it already has, the broader economy is going to feel it. The stock market correction alone would pull down 401ks, pensions, and retirement accounts across the country, including yours, whether you ever bought a single share or not. The risk is shared, and the people building the system are quietly preparing for the possibility that the music stops. This is not a prediction that the AI bubble is about to pop tomorrow. The market can stay irrational longer than naysayers can stay solvent, and there is enough investor money still flowing into this space to keep the lights on for a while. But the assumptions holding it all together, infinite power, infinite chip demand, infinite community tolerance, infinite investor patience, are starting to crack one by one. And once a few of them break in the same quarter, the unwind could happen a lot faster than anyone is prepared for. You cannot stop any of this from happening. But you can pay attention to which side of the trade you are on, because that is increasingly the only question that actually matters. Now here's the uncomfortable question all of this forces you to ask yourself. The AI build-out has already minted a handful of winners: the Nvidia millionaires, the early employees, the hardware suppliers who got in before the wave broke. But the vast majority of people watching this right now are on the other side of that trade, whether they realize it or not. And that pattern, a small group getting rich while everyone else absorbs the cost, is not new. It played out the exact same way with a different company in a different industry just a few years ago. Go and watch this video next on the SpaceX IPO, how 4,000 early investors walked away wealthy and why almost everyone else missed the window entirely. Because the question is never, was there money to be made? The question is always the same: were you on the right side of it or the wrong side?